All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Ravens flock. What's going on, everybody? Hope you guys are enjoying your day. So, as we all know, the preseason officially came to an end on Sunday. Today is Tuesday. It is a very important day. Why is it important? Because today is the deadline for roster cuts to, trim it down to the 53-man roster. So we'll get to see who's going to make the official roster. We'll get to see who's going to make the practice squad. And we'll get to see the group of people that didn't make the cut. Should be very interesting because I got a good chunk of names on that list that I just do not believe is going to make this team. But we'll wait and see for that. This video is not about that. When we get the official 53-man roster, we'll talk about it then. But this video is actually about training camp and the preseason. I want to do a little bit of a recap about that because coming into training camp and coming into this preseason, there's been a different energy in Baltimore. Obviously because of the changes and upgrades that's been made. For the first time in Lamar Jackson's career, he is going to have legit weapons that he can throw to. This is easily the best receiving corps he's had in his career. Odell Beckham Jr., Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar. These were the additions they added to this team. You still have Rashad Bateman here. You're still going to have Devin Duvernay here. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, your tight end duo, they're still doing their thing. And you also have Charlie Kolar, who's going to be that third tight end. So you've got plenty of weapons to utilize. And let's not forget the backfield because you have the return of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards 100% healthy. Something we have not seen since the 2020 season. It's been 3 years since these two have been on the field together healthy. That's crazy to think about. Justice Hill, he's made a resurgence. He went through his injury situation, came back, he's 100% healthy, and he's been playing great throughout the preseason. And then you got this young guy, Keaton Mitchell, who I think they may keep. There's just been a very interesting amount of surprises when it comes to weapons added to this offense. But most importantly, the biggest difference when it comes to what's happened for the Ravens offense is a change of offensive coordinator. We go from Greg Roman to Todd Monken. And Todd Monken's system is vastly different from what Lamar has seen so far in the league. It's somewhat similar to what he dealt with during his time in Louisville in terms of him being put in the spread offense, but it's a lot more intricate in terms of what they're adding and what he has to manage and how much control he has. So it's a lot more that goes into it, a lot more complicated, which is exactly what Lamar Jackson wanted because he's been given the keys. So I kind of wanted to just do a recap about how training camp went and how the preseason went. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into talking about the training camp. This one we had to start with because obviously our starters did not play in the preseason. The only ones that played that we'll definitely be seeing a good chunk of throughout the season is Gus Edwards and Zay Flowers, at least on the offensive side. Defensively, it's a different conversation. We did have a couple of people that did play there, but that was only for like one game, and some did play afterwards, but we'll get into that. So, training camp. How did training camp go for the Ravens? The first training camp where you have a whole new offensive coordinator in the Lamar Jackson era. You got new weapons from to utilize, a whole new offensive scheme, a whole new system that everybody has to learn and adapt to and adjust and be able to get it down. How did training camp go for the Ravens? Well, number one, we have to say this for both sides, not even just training camp, but for the preseason. When it comes to injuries, this has been one of the least injury-riddled training camps and preseasons we've dealt with in quite some time, easily. For the first time in 3 years, we actually went through the entire training camp and preseason without a significant injury. And when I mean significant injury, I mean season ending. You didn't really suffer that. Now, we've had some serious injuries that have happened, but none of it has been to our major players except one, and that's Marlon Humphrey's injury, which is going to keep him out for the first probably couple games, first 2 to 3, who knows. But he's going to be out early on to start the season. But other than that, all the injuries you've been getting have been little nicks here and there. And all the players that were out and missing time due to that have returned. Meanwhile, the other ones that didn't start training camp because they were dealing with injuries, everyone's pretty much returned except Tyus Bowser, who we're hearing he's making progress, but we have no idea when he could be back. They think it's possible he can make it back within the first 3 games, which is why he may not be put on IR or the PUP list, because they're really hopeful that he won't miss the first 4 games, and we'll have to see if that is the case. But other than that, yeah, we did not have an injury-riddled preseason. We didn't have an injury-riddled training camp, and that's all we can ask for as Ravens fans. So, thank you. You don't understand how much that means, bro. The last couple years, just getting through training camp has been hell. And the fact that they were able to do so while staying relatively healthy was impactful. Now let's actually go on. Let's shift focus to what actually happened on the practice field throughout training camp, because that's where the emphasis is. We'll start off with the quarterback room. Okay, the quarterback room probably had the most mixed production we've seen out of all the offensive aspects in training camp. The quarterback room did not, as a whole, they were solid. And the reason they were solid really has to deal with Lamar Jackson. So I did not realize just how serious the Ravens were in regards to the backup quarterback position. Coming into camp, I originally thought it's Tyler Huntley's job and it'll be Josh Johnson and Anthony Brown fighting for that QB3 spot. But from what the reports have been saying throughout training camp, it's actually been relatively close between Huntley, Anthony Brown, and Josh Johnson. So it was actually a fight for the QB2 spot. Not only that, but we've heard recent news that the Ravens tried to make an offer to get Trey Lance in a trade so he can become the backup quarterback for the Ravens. Obviously, he ended up getting traded to Cowboys, so he's going to back up Dak Prescott. But the fact that the Ravens were willing to do that showcases how they view their backup quarterback position and how much of a competition this has been. So I thought this was something that was clear as day, and it was Tyler Huntley coming into camp. But apparently he did not perform up to par, or it just wasn't what the Ravens were thinking they would get from him. And he was performing very close to how Johnson and Anthony Brown were performing, so it became a legit quarterback competition. However, based on how Tyler Huntley performed in the preseason, I think it's relatively safe to say he's probably going to take that QB2 spot. Now, of course, he's dealing with that hamstring injury, so yeah, that's kind of there for now. But he's most likely going to be the QB2 for the Ravens, which leaves that QB3 spot between Josh Johnson and Anthony Brown. And if I'm going to be blatantly honest, Josh Johnson won that job. Based on how both of these guys played in the preseason, Josh Johnson is going to take that QB3 spot over Anthony Brown. The only thing that could give Anthony Brown the advantage is if they decide to go the path of youth, because Josh Johnson is very old. He's a journeyman. He's like, 36, 37? So he's getting to the end of his ropes in his career. He's a journeyman. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to just go young for that QB3 position, so they may take Anthony Brown. But in terms of who performed better in the preseason, it was clear Josh Johnson was a better performer in these preseason games than Anthony Brown. He performed better. He was better in controlling the offense. He was better in driving the ball down the field. He made more plays. He turned the ball over less compared to Anthony Brown. It was clear as day. So I think that QB3 spot is going to go to Josh Johnson. So yeah, when it comes to the backup quarterback position, it was an actual battle in camp, and I still don't believe the Ravens feel comfortable with how the quarterback room looks right now, because they did try to go get Trey Lance. We'll see if they want to continue to do that, but I guess they don't feel fully comfortable with how that quarterback room is looking right now. They want to get somebody that they see as a true suitable backup for Lamar Jackson. Speaking of Lamar Jackson, how did he perform in training camp? I did say the quarterback room as a whole performed solid because of Lamar Jackson, because he had to carry so much. So let's actually focus in on how he performed. I'm going to be very honest. This is probably one of the most up and down, fluctuating, inconsistent training camps from Lamar Jackson. There were plenty of moments of brilliance, plenty of moments of positivity and great plays, but you do have a good sum of negative plays that did not look good for Lamar Jackson. Now, when it comes to those negative aspects of those bad plays, it's really situations where they're working on the chemistry and Lamar's missing throws. So when you look at the good aspect, here's what you need to know. From what I've seen and what the reports have said, Lamar has gotten very comfortable in this offense. Todd Monken has given him the keys, and Lamar Jackson is showcasing that. Lamar has complete control of this offense, be it him playing under center or him playing in a shotgun. the pre-snap adjustments he's able to make. We see him doing it out there. The audibles that he's making and he's calling during these practices, we see it all. So in terms of control and understanding of this offense, in terms of having the keys to the offense and being able to do whatever you want, Lamar Jackson is showcasing that. So it's a high positive. He's clearly adjusted to Tom Munkin's system. He loves what he's seeing in Tom Munkin's system, and all that is the main focus for this Ravens offense is to execute in practice and execute on game day. But in terms of understanding Tom Munkin's system, understanding the offense, and getting control of it, Lamar Jackson has done that throughout training camp. So that's exactly what you want to see if you're a Ravens fan. That's the positive. Another positive has to deal with Lamar Jackson in terms of the passing aspect. When we're talking about the short and intermediate game, Lamar Jackson has been great throughout training camp. There was one aspect of the short passing game he wasn't great on, and that was screens. He was relatively inconsistent with throwing screens, because there were some reports about that, but it wasn't anything severely major. And I expected to be inconsistent with that, because when the hell was the Ravens offense throwing screens under Greg Roman? When you're not doing something consistently, obviously it's going to take time to adjust to that. So there were some drops or some bad throws from Lamar, some low throws on those screens that did happen, but overall it wasn't anything majorly serious. That was still an overall positive in terms of short and intermediate passing game. Now, when we get to the negative aspect of Lamar Jackson in training camp, you have to look at the deep passing game. And this is what we're talking about, where he's had the bad nights, the bad practices. Man. Obviously the most prominent one, the most talked about one, was the practice where all the quarterbacks threw interceptions. 9 interceptions in between all the quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson had 4 of those 9 interceptions. We got some details about that, and they were able to specify that it was a drill. It was a 3rd and long drill in which they had to convert 3rd and long, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, whatever it was. They had to convert for a first down, and it was set up to give the advantage to the defense and put a lot of pressure on the offense to try and make plays. Obviously, because you will be in situations like that when it comes to how you're going to play in the regular season. We will be in 3rd and long situations in the regular season. You can book that now, especially when the game's on the line and it's close against a tough opponent. We will be in 3rd and long situations. So the fact that they're practicing that now, something that I don't think they did in the past, that's a good thing. And obviously, if you saw how Lamar and the quarterbacks performed when they did that drill for the first time, a bunch of interceptions. So it is what it is on that one. But what I really want to focus on is really how the deep ball has looked for Lamar Jackson. It's been very inconsistent. It's a lot of times you're watching Lamar Jackson either overthrow or underthrow his receiver. The biggest piece of evidence in which you can see that would have to be the joint practices against the Commanders, where you were watching Odell get open downfield, you were watching Mark Andrews get open downfield. There was a moment where Zay Flowers got open downfield, and they just weren't able to connect. Though I will say with the Zay Flowers one, that was a perfectly thrown pass by Lamar, or it was at least a great ball from Lamar, and it was in the hands of Zay Flowers. He just couldn't make the catch. But in terms of connecting with OBJ downfield throughout the joint practices, there were some moments where he was underthrowing him and the play was converted because OBJ is just that guy. And there were moments where OBJ got open downfield and Lamar Jackson just underthrew him. So it's been a lot of passes that have been overthrown or underthrown throughout training camp. And this is something that the reporters have definitely spoken on in terms of how they've looked at Lamar in the deep ball. Now, me honestly, I don't look at this as something hugely alarming, because this is something I think many of us should have expected to see. We didn't throw a lot of deep balls under Greg Roman's system. It was never built to throw the ball down the field. And whenever they tried to get those plays down the field, it took forever for those plays to develop, and our offensive line wasn't great. So Lamar Jackson just standing in the pocket for 3, 4, 5 seconds. Nobody's getting open downfield, and now he's got to either take off or he gets sacked. So when you look at this, how do I want to assess this? I really want to assess it in an aspect and say it's growing pains. Because again, you have to understand the man is in a whole new system, but most importantly, he has 3 new weapons to throw to. Like I said, Odell, Zay, and Aguilar. You have 3 new weapons to throw to. I don't expect you to get the chemistry down like that right off the bat. Now, this is something Lamar Jackson needs to fix. And the fact that they've been having him constantly throw the ball down the field throughout training camp is a clear indication that they're recognizing that that is an aspect that needs to be improved and fixed on. And they're constantly putting Lamar Jackson in these situations to improve that aspect. The more Lamar gets thrown in these situations, the more comfortable he gets in the system, the more chemistry he builds with his receivers. I didn't expect Lamar to have perfect chemistry with Zay, and Odell and Aguilar right off the bat. I mean, I didn't expect that to happen within a month and a half of training camp. That was just not going to be the case for the most part. So I'm fine with how things look now, but I expect that to be an aspect that is going to be improved on, because it's something that they've continuously worked on throughout training camp. And it's not like Lamar hasn't had great passes down the field. He's had plenty of great passes down the field where he's connected with OBJ, he's connected with Zay, he's connected with Aguilar. He's made those passes. So I'm not worried about the deep passing game right now, because clearly they're addressing it. And if they're addressing it and looking to fix it, that's all I really need to see. But that was really the only negative aspect to really talk about Lamar. And again, he's working on the chemistry. Zay Flowers said their chemistry is at 60%. OBJ says they're still working on that chemistry and they're trying to ramp it up and get more comfortable with each other. So obviously it's going to take time. I'm not surprised. So I don't think it's time to hit the panic button on the deep passing attack. The fact that they're addressing it now showcases they want to fix this issue and work on that. Something that they didn't really do much of in previous seasons. So the fact that it's being worked on now, I'm fine with it. But past that, let me think. Past that, yeah, I think Lamar Jackson overall had a really good training camp. The deep passing attack was the only thing that was really in a negative there. But yeah, I think he had a relatively good training camp, but this was definitely one of the most uneven ones, because, you know, those misses downfield, people did recognize that, and reporters constantly talked about it, which at the end of the day, it is what it is. So take it how you will. Overall, Lamar Jackson had a really good training camp. I can't say great because he's missing all those passes, but they had a really good training camp, and obviously training camp showcased that there's a lot of growing pains and things that they want to work on and improve. It actually kind of brings up the thought of you know, the Ravens choosing to not play Lamar Jackson and the starters in the preseason. I understand they wanted to be careful and not put them at risk for injury, but this is a brand new offensive scheme, a whole new system. You got 3 new receivers. You would think they would at least want to try and put them out there for one series just to get a look at how they would perform game time. But I guess they felt comfortable enough to say, hey, we'll just continue to practice this, continue to put our guys in these scenarios and prepare them for week 1. Week 1 is our test. That's when we'll put them out there and see what they can do. So yeah, it is what it is. Speaking of the receivers, they had a great training camp. OBJ has been the best performer on the practice field. He's been making play after play after play after play. Zay Flowers has been great. Nobody can cover him. Everybody's been raving about this guy, and I can't wait to see what he can do, because he's been great. And what we saw him do in the preseason, this guy is shifty and he's going to make plays. Nelson Aguilar is going to be one of the most underrated aspects of this offense. He's going to be the guy Lamar goes to in some of these situations where you're watching that Odell's covered and Zay's covered. And when people are covering the middle of the field so Mark Andrews can't do anything, he's going to be looking for Nelson Aguilar in those situations. So I think Aguilar is going to be a very underrated receiver in this whole spectrum. But we'll see. Of course, we do have to talk about Rashad Bateman. There's not much to assess when it comes to Rashad Bateman's training camp, because he was gone for damn near all of it. He just recently got back, and all I can say is that he's gotten to the point where he's working with the team when it comes to those team drills. Him and Lamar are still continuing to build that chemistry. Lamar connected with him on a deep ball in one of their last training camp practices. So, you know, Rashad Bateman's working himself up to pace and up to speed with this new offense and getting back that chemistry he had with Lamar Jackson. So we'll just have to wait and see. There's nothing to say about Rashad Bateman when it comes to his training camp, because he wasn't there for most of it. So it is what it is. And then last but not least, Devin Duvernay, who is our wide receiver 5. Now, I could go into the wide receiver 6 position if the Ravens choose to keep it. We'll find out soon enough whenever they release it today. But I'm not going to discuss that because I don't know who's going to be the wide receiver 6 position. And I'll probably talk about it when we figure that out, if the Ravens even want to keep 6 receivers in the first place. So I'll end it with Duvernay. Duvernay, again, he hasn't had a very... It's not a bad training camp, but it's been a quiet one. He's made plays throughout the preseason because they've had him play. You know, getting him out there. Obviously, he's no longer really one of your starting receivers. So, you know, he's going to be more of one of the assistant receivers that's really going to come out there when they want to get their starters to just rest. When you've already played Zay and OBJ and Bateman out so much, you'll have situations where you're going to put Devin Duvernay out there. But I think it's really going to be a year where they're going to have him have more of an emphasis on the return game because he is a Pro Bowl returner, so it is what it is. But he's had a quiet training camp. He's had a really quiet training camp. Haven't seen much from him, but in terms of how he's performed in the preseason, it's clear that Devin Duvernay is still Devin Duvernay. He's found ways to make plays and get open. He's a playmaker, so he's going to go out there and contribute however he can. So it hasn't really been a lot of plays from him throughout this training camp, obviously because of the addition of the new receivers and him not really getting those opportunities. But again, he's still Duvernay. It is what it is at the end of the day. Overall, the receiving core has been killing it throughout training camp, constantly making plays down the field. Zay can't be covered. OBJ's been the best performer. Nelson Aguilar's been underrated. Rashad Bateman coming back and getting that chemistry. And Devin Duvernay making plays here and there, mostly showing its impact in the preseason to showcase that he is still another weapon that Lamar Jackson can utilize in this passing game. So yeah, that looked great. Then you get to the running situation when you look at the running back room. Like I said, in terms of training camp and hell, even for the preseason, Justice Hills looked great. Justice Hills looked great. It's clear as day he's going to be your third back. He's still going to be playing on special teams as well because he's thrived there, but he's going to be your third back. But, we all know it's coming down to J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. Speaking of Gus Edwards, he came back relatively early into training camp. He was healthy and he was out there doing his thing. Gus Edwards is still Gus Edwards. He's still the Gus Bus, so I expect him to go out there and do what he was doing. And he's still getting himself back into form, but he was relatively solid throughout training camp. As for J.K. Dobbins, it's another Rashad Bateman situation. He wasn't here for most of it, so there's nothing I can say about J.K. Dobbins. I don't even know if he was fully... I think the last day of training camp was actually where he had to practice with the team when it came to team drills for the first time. I think that might have been his first day doing team drills. So he's really working himself back. And just like Bateman, it's something we'll just have to wait and see when the season starts. But yeah, Gus has been doing his thing. Justice Hill has been killing it throughout training camp and the preseason. And then you got this young guy in Keaton Mitchell, bro. Both in training camp and in preseason, the guy has been killing it. I think he has earned himself a roster spot, and I hope the Ravens keep it. I really hope they keep him over Melvin Gordon, because I'm really scared that they're going to keep Gordon because he's a veteran. Keep Mitchell, it works. I don't even know why Gordon's still here. He has showcased nothing throughout preseason. He has showcased nothing in training camp for you to want to believe he should be on this roster. You got a young guy in Mitchell that is showcasing he can be a weapon on the field. He can be a playmaker. He can be utilized in the run and the receiving game. Let him get on this roster, especially since you got other guys that you can rotate with him. Him and Justice Hill, they can definitely rotate when you want to give J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards a break. I'm hopeful that Mitchell will be here because he's had a great camp. The running back unit as a whole, not much to say about it because J.K. Dobbins was gone, but yeah, Justice Hill was great. Gus Edwards still getting himself adjusted, but he was solid. And then Mitchell showcasing that he deserves a spot on this team. Tight end room. This is a whole saga, man. The tight end room, honestly, it's going to be 3 tight ends. It's going to be Mark Andrews. It's going to be Isaiah Likely. It's going to be Charlie Kolar. I will say this. Mark Andrews is still Mark Andrews. He's still one of the best tight ends in football, and he's still going out there and terrorizing whoever's in front of him. So, not much to say. He's had a great training camp. He's done exactly what you expect Mark Andrews to do. He's a competitor. So, him and Lamar Jackson, their chemistry is like this. It's like this. It's beautiful. They're on the same wavelength, they're on the same mindset, they're on the same point of view. They just understand each other so much, and the chemistry's at 1,000. They're one of the best quarterback tight end duos in football. When you ask me, 1 is Mahomes and Kelsey, 2 is Lamar and Andrews. So there's nothing that really needs to be talked about when it comes to Mark Andrews. Isaiah Likely, he's had a nice training camp. He's made some plays here and there, and hopefully, because again, when it comes to how he played in the preseason, it's not like he made a lot of plays, but he's made plays throughout training camp. So hopefully he'll be able to take that next step and become a very, very, very incredibly productive tight end too. Because when you put him and Andrews out there, it should be a problem for defenses. And I hope he continues to improve. Lastly, Charlie Kolar. Obviously, he was on the team last year. He was the other tight end they drafted, but due to injury, he just wasn't able to really come out and play. I believe he did play in one game last season because he was able to get healthy by then. But other than that, there was not much to say. So he comes into training camp healthy and he's doing his thing. And in all honesty, Charlie Kolar, he's made some plays. He's been relatively solid, but he does have an issue with drops and fumbling the ball. And we saw that in the preseason. He's got to get that cleaned up. He's a tight end 3, so he's got to get that cleaned up. But other than that, he's been relatively productive. The tight ends have been doing their thing. The tight end room is always going to be great in Baltimore. As long as they're healthy, they're going to be great and they're going to be productive. So there's not much to really say about this. Andrews is still Andrews. Isaiah Likely is trying to emerge. And Charlie Kolar looks to be solid and nice as a tight end 3. He just needs to fix his drops and his fumbling issues. Fix that and he's good. So yeah, that's kind of just the tight end room. Last but not least, the offensive line. This is tough. I believe Harbaugh, after the preseason game against the Buccaneers, Harbaugh came out and said that Simpson is going to take that left guard position. Because I was actually getting ready to talk about that. I didn't know who was going to be our left guard because they've been throwing people in there. Ben Cleveland hasn't showcased that he's that guy to take over that spot yet. They're probably still hopeful that he'll turn into that in due time, but right now he's clearly not that guy. The person who's performed the best in that situation has been Simpson, so he's going to be in the offensive line. As a whole, the way the offensive line is played has been very shaky. They've been getting dominated throughout training camp. In the preseason, they've made a lot of mistakes. Of course, it's not like you were playing your starters out there. Like Stanley wasn't out there. You weren't seeing guys like that. Like you just weren't seeing your main guys out there. But when they were in these practices and training camp, they were constantly getting bullied and dominated. I feel like an element that causes this with the offensive line is the fact that they're in a brand new offensive system, and it's going to take them time to adjust. Out of everybody on the offense, the aspect that has to adjust the most is going to be the offensive line. The reason for this is because they're in an entirely new scheme. When you're running a heavy set formation with Greg Roman, you know what you're doing. It's very complicated. There's a lot of motionings and switches between guys within the offensive line and guys motioning left and right, receivers doing that. So that level of scheme, that heavy formation, that's what these guys have been used to over the last several years with Greg Roman being here. Todd Monken's offense isn't like that. They're a lot fast. They're not doing heavy sets. They're running a lot of 11. They're running a lot of 11 personnel. They're running some 12, some 20. They're just looking to spread it out. They're looking to spread it out. With Greg Roman, everything's bunched up and having Lamar work in the pistol. This is spread out. Lamar can work under center or in the shotgun. So this offensive line is going to have to get used to it, especially because the pace with Tom Monken's offense is a whole lot faster compared to what we were seeing with Greg Roman. So obviously the offensive line is going to be affected the most. It's going to take them some time, but I do have some hopes that they will be able to get it together. We'll just have to see. But overall, they've been shaky, and there's not much that really needs to be spoken of there. And that's basically the offense. Oh, God. I will not spend this much time talking about the defense, but since we're talking about all of training camp and the preseason, we needed to get into this. Let's talk about the defense. To get this out the way, linebacking core has been great. Roquan Smith's been great. Patrick Queen's been doing his thing. Malik Harris has been nice. We don't need to talk about the linebacking core. They're having a great training camp. They're doing their thing. Same for the safety unit. Kyle Hamilton came in and had an amazing training camp. Obviously, he is showcasing that he's starting to take that next step in year 2. Marcus Williams is still one of the best free safeties in the NFL. So he's going to go out there and perform, and he did that throughout training camp. Both of them were able to get multiple interceptions. They really did a number on Mark Andrews throughout this training camp, man, because a lot of stops. When you saw Hamilton go one-on-one with Mark Andrews, he did a good job in getting the best of Andrews there. And when it came to those 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 actions, man, Marcus Williams was doing some damage on Mark Andrews. So it's safe to say when it comes to the linebacking unit and the safety unit, we don't got any worries there. They had great training camps. When you look at the front seven and the pass rush, though, that's where things get a little bit concerning. Obviously, the Ravens have recently added Jadeveon Clowney, so we'll see how that goes. He did not play in the preseason, so we'll just have to see how he looks come week 1. He's going to be a huge asset when it comes to our run defense. So he'll be looking to stop the run, which is going to open it up for guys like Odafe Owe and David Ojabo to really rush the passer. Speaking of those two, it's been very interesting. We've heard a lot of praise from David Ojabo in terms of how he's looked in practice. However, when you look at him in the preseason, it's clear as day that this guy has only played one game in the NFL. He is incredibly raw when it comes to his technique and his fundamentals. He's incredibly raw, which is something that is to be expected. Technically, this is his rookie year because he's only played one game. He was injured all last season. So technically, this is his rookie year, and he looks to be like a rookie. I don't know what else to tell you. I saw a lot of people sitting back and saying he has not looked great. I understand the concerns, but he's played one NFL game. One, because he wasn't healthy. This is essentially his rookie year. So I don't know if we can expect a lot from him. If anything, I'm hopeful that Odafe Owe is going to be the guy to be leading the charge, which again, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Speaking of Odafe Owe, he's had a relatively solid training camp. You know, he's also had a good chunk of times where he's gotten to the quarterback and he's looked nice. I think this is a situation where Odafe Owe is going to have to go out there and lead the charge. Especially because Tyus Bowser, we have no clue when he's going to get back. So you got to look at Odafe Owe, who's has a lot more experience than David Ojabo to lead the way. And Ojabo, who, other than utilizing that spin move, doesn't really have anything else in his arsenal right now. Yeah, he's going to have to learn on the fly. I don't feel entirely comfortable with our pass rush right now. So that is something that is a bit of a concern because if you saw how these guys performed in the preseason, you would understand that there was little to no pass rush in any of the three games. They struggled to get to the quarterback. So that same issue's there. They could not generate pressure without blitzing, and that still seems to be a concern. Obviously, it wasn't all the starters that were out there, but seeing a guy like David Ojabo out there getting all these snaps and he's doing nothing to get to the quarterback, he's being stopped, he's trying that spin move and it's not working enough for him, that is a bit concerning, but I understand he's technically a rookie, so I'm going to give him some slack. Overall, the pass rushing unit, technically as a whole, they've had a really good training camp because they've bullied our offensive line. But in terms of execution on the field, for some of the guys that did play, there's not a lot to really look at here. This is one that's just up in the air. It's a question mark. I don't know how the pass rush is going to look come week one. So we'll just have to wait and see. I don't know how they're going to look, but more so, I don't know how they're going to perform. You do have your same guys there, but I just don't know. I legitimately just don't know how they're going to perform. And that's a concern. But we'll just have to wait and see. Ravens continue to make moves, so we'll see if they can add somebody else to that unit. But right now, you're depending on a lot of young guys there, and I'm not sure these young guys are ready for the role, but with them being out there, they're going to have to be quick learners. Last but not least, let's actually get into the secondary because this is the biggest concern. Like I said at the start of the video, Marlon Humphrey will not be here to start the season. So he's going to be out for the first couple games. He'll be returning soon. He already had surgery for his injury. He's recuperating. He's recovering. He'll be back soon. He will be on the field at some point this season. So that's not a concern. But when you look at the cornerback room, even with Humphrey there, it's not really that great. Now, the Ravens did a good job in going out and getting Rock Ya-Sin and Ronald Darby. So you got Darby and you got Rock Ya-Sin. With Marlon Humphrey out, those are your two best corners. Ronald Darby, who again is coming off of a season-ending injury. He played well last year before he suffered a season-ending injury. He's healthy again, and we don't know how he's going to look post-injury. He's going to have to be one of your main corners. And then you look at the other opposite side, it's Rock Ya-Sin, who again, he's had some injury history, and he suffered an injury throughout training camp that kept him out. It was a knee injury, wasn't anything major, but he still suffered that knee injury that kept him out for a long time. So yeah, we got some concerns there. The corner situation is not great in Baltimore, and it's a serious concern. So those two are going to have to hold it down. And while they're holding it down, they're going to be having a mini competition because once Humphrey gets back, someone else is going to have to move. Unless you want to put one of those two in a slot, and then you just work it that way. But yeah, Darby and Rock Ya-Sin are your two best corners right now, and they're going to be the guys out there week one most likely. Past that, you look at everybody else here. Brandon Stevens, he's had an up and down camp. He's made some strides. I like what I've seen from him in times. He's made some strides, and he's had some moments where things have been good. But past that, there's been some elements where it's like, I'm not sure. Darius Washington has had a really good camp, and he's really performed well in the preseason. So Washington has done a great job. We have a lot of these corners out here that have performed that I'm not fully sure about. Pepe also, he had to go get surgery, so I don't know when he's gonna be back. It's concerning. The quarterback situation is not good, man. We don't have a lot of good. We don't have a lot of depth at corner, and the guys we do. I'm sorry, guys. It's frustrating. I'm not trying to say the guys we have on the roster right now can't perform, but they're not high-level performing guys. They're good to have there at depth, but you don't want them to be your starters. When you look at Ronald Darby, you're not going to want him to go out there and immediately be one of your best corners or one of your main corners because he's coming off an injury. Yet, due to the fact that Marlon Humphrey's gone, he's probably going to go out there. You look at Darius Washington and Brandon Stevens and all this other stuff, and you're thinking to yourself, are you sure these guys are ready? I mean, they still feel like they're in the developmental phase, and I don't know if they're ever going to turn into a really great corner. There's just a lot of young depth in this cornerback situation, and I have serious concerns. I don't know what else to say. I have serious concerns. The corners have been up and down through training camp and through the preseason. Half of that has to deal with performance. The other half has to deal with injuries, because everyone I just named, or damn near everyone I just named, they've been in and out of the lineup. Rocky Sin's been in and out because he suffered injuries. Brandon Stevens has suffered injuries. Every corner we've had has been in and out of the lineup. So I don't know if they're going to be healthy enough to play. And when they're on the field, I don't know how they're going to produce. So corner is a huge question mark. We still assume that the Ravens are going to go and try to get a corner, but I have no idea where they're going to get a corner from. They need a legit number 2 corner next to Marlon Humphrey when he gets back. And I don't know where the Ravens are going to go get that. So I don't expect any moves to be made soon. I'm looking towards a trade deadline, because that's where DeCosta usually tries to finesse. That's how he got Roquan Smith. So if there's any moment to see the Ravens pick up a corner that's needed, it would be by the trade deadline. It's how we got Roquan Smith, and it's how we got Marcus Peters. So expect DeCosta to make a move mid-season close to the trade deadline. He will make that move. We'll just have to wait and see. Other than that, special teams, they were fine. I mean, Tucker is still the best kicker in football. Stout is doing well in the punting. We did lose our original long snapper, so we did have to sign someone else. But other than that, yeah, special teams is still fine. They've been doing their thing for the most part. Other than that, we do have guys on the roster that I'm not sure is going to be here. James Prochet is definitely one, and I'm not going to speak on that now. Maybe he does make the roster. I'll wait until later on today to see what that looks like, but I just don't know if he's going to make this roster. They're making cuts, and it's just a bunch of guys in my mind that I want to talk about right now that I know is on the chopping block that could very well not make might make this team. So I'm just going to wait and see until the 53-man roster officially comes out, and then the practice squad guys come out, and I'll make my assessment there to talk about some of those guys in terms of how they've looked in training camp and in the preseason when they have played. But other than that, yeah, that pretty much puts a wrap on training camp. It was filled with injuries, but nothing severe, nothing season-ending, nothing major. A lot of guys that were hurt came back, that came into training camp hurt. They've come back, except Tyus Bowser. And guys that started training camp healthy, they got nicked up and came back too. So, besides Marlon Humphrey and Pepe, but you're not dealing with a lot of major injuries the way you were in previous seasons. This is one of the healthiest the Ravens have been entering week 1 of the NFL season in the last 2 to 3 years. So I'm excited to see what this team could do. As for the preseason, like I said, when you look at the quarterback performance, Tyler Huntley, in the game he did play, showcased that he is probably going to be QB2. Josh Johnson did outperform Anthony Brown, so he's going to be QB3. Keaton Mitchell was killing it throughout training camp, so I think he's going to make the roster. If there's somebody I could potentially guess or predict who's going to be that wide receiver 6, it would have to be Tylan Wallace, because Tylan Wallace has been the best receiver on the field throughout the preseason. 3 games, he has 2 touchdowns, and he's made a lot of great catches and has made some nice plays. So Tylan Wallace, I'm pretty sure he did enough to get himself that wide receiver 6 spot, which means I believe Prochet is probably not going to make the team, but I'm not going to make any guesses right now. We'll wait and see when the official 53-man roster comes out. So we'll just have to wait and see for that. Other than that, defense, yeah, David Ojabo looked very raw out there throughout the preseason. The secondary was just getting gashed and cooked throughout the preseason because, he's got a bunch of young guys there that are fighting for a roster spot, and you got a bunch of young depth players that really aren't going to be producing a lot, but based on how Baltimore's cornerback situation is looking right now, they may be thrown to the fire. And last time these guys were thrown to the fire, we saw what happened. Week 2 against the Dolphins, what happened. When you're going up against legit weapons, and you're going to throw these young guys out there, good luck trying to stop the top receivers, man. But, yeah, I mean, secondary was iffy. Pass rush was virtually non-existent throughout the preseason, other than the times where they actually set pressure and blitzed. And then the offensive line was shaky, a lot of penalties, a lot of holding calls, a lot of times where you're just watching either Huntley when he was out there or Johnson or even Anthony Brown. A lot of times where they're just under pressure, the pocket collapse like that because these guys can't block. Especially when you were looking at that left side, it was not a good look. But the depth in the offensive line is concerning, but it is what it is. And yeah, other than that, not much really to say about the preseason. I guess if we want to mention it, yeah, the 24 game winning streak was broken by the Commanders. Congrats to them, I guess. I don't really care. And then obviously they lost the Buccaneers as well, which again showcased the weaknesses I'm talking about in this pass rush, in the secondary, in the offensive line. It is what it is at the end of the day. And the quarterback room as well, because Anthony Brown did not look good. But it is what it is at the end of the day. The Ravens got through training camp and the preseason without suffering significant losses the same way they had to deal with it in each of the last 2 seasons. So we're relatively healthy as we could possibly be, minus Marlon Humphrey, minus Tyus Bowser, who might be able to get there, and potentially minus Mark Andrews. But Coach Harbaugh did speak about this yesterday and said that Mark Andrews should be back to practice next week, and he'll be good to go week 1 against the Texans. So we'll wait and see. But apparently he's dealing with some undisclosed injury. We'll just have to wait and see. He has not practiced at all in the last couple days. So yeah, it's concerning, but it is what it is. They did say he would be back next week, so we'll just have to wait until next week, because next week, week 1 kicks off, and we'll be getting ready to host the Houston Texans at M&T Bank Stadium for week 1. So hopefully Andrews will be back by then, and we'll just go from there. But yeah, that pretty much puts a wrap on the preseason and training camp. It's been a very interesting experience, a lot of progress, a lot of new faces, a lot of good and a lot of bad, some inconsistencies here, performance-wise in the preseason, performance-wise on the training field. It's just been a whole lot. But the Ravens were able to go through the gauntlet, come out relatively healthy, and now they're preparing for the regular season. I cannot wait to see what this offense is going to bring to the table. I might have to make a video on this because a lot of people may expect the Ravens to come out blazing. I don't know if we're going to see that from this offense. We didn't get to see anything from them in the preseason because they didn't put the starters out there. So I have no idea how this offense is going to look. They could easily come out here firing on all cylinders like they did in Miami 4 years ago, back during Lamar's MVP campaign. So they can come out blazing like that, or they can come out similar to how the Jets game went last year, where they still had a good game, they still played well, but Lamar at the end of the game was like, yeah, we were very rusty. I was rusty. We were rusty. It took us time to get into the rhythm that we wanted to get into. So we'll have to see. Maybe they come out rusty and some of the plays that could have been made are missed, or they come out blazing and they blow out the Texans. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, guys, I appreciate you watching. This has been a long video. It's been a long time since I've talked this long about one topic that isn't a live stream. So yeah, it's been a while since I made a long video like this. But I did just want to address and recap training camp and the preseason, and I was able to do that here. So yeah, preseason is over, training camp is over. The team is preparing for week 1. And what's up next? The Houston Texans, when the regular season kicks off in less than 2 weeks. So with that being said, that is all I've got, Ravens flock, and I'm out of here. Peace.